Ex-fiancée cheated at her bachelorette party. Hey, true story. My name is Malik, and I've been debating on whether or not I should even write this out, but I've been listening to your channel for a while now, and I feel like sharing my story might be the therapy I need. Plus, maybe some guy out there will hear what I went through and think twice before ignoring his gut feelings. This is going to be a long one, so bear with me, because I want to lay everything out properly. This is part one. So, let me take you back to how I even met my ex-fiancée. We both worked at the Amazon warehouse in my city. If you've ever worked there, you know it's not exactly a dream job. Long hours, tough work, and a ton of people just trying to get by. But it also becomes kind of a social scene because when you're working with the same people every day, unloading trucks, scanning packages, doing shifts at 2 a.m., you start talking, making friends, and sometimes even finding relationships. That's where she came in. Let's call her Alicia. The first time I saw her, she was working in my department, stacking boxes on the line. I'm not going to lie. She caught my attention right away. She had this energy about her, like she was always laughing, always in a good mood, and it made those long warehouse nights feel a little less miserable. I remember one night we got stuck on mandatory overtime and everyone was frustrated, but she cracked a joke about how Amazon was basically preparing us for the Hunger Games. Everyone laughed, and from that night on, I started looking for her during shifts. We started off just talking casually, nothing serious. We'd sit together on breaks, share snacks, and talk about life. I learned she had just moved back to our city after finishing up some schooling out of state. She was close with her family, especially her little sister. I liked that about her. It made her seem grounded. Over time, those breaks turned into texting outside of work, then hanging out on off days, and before I knew it, we were dating. At first, it was good. She was fun, outgoing, and always down for an adventure. We'd go out to eat, take road trips, binge watch shows after long shifts. She made life exciting, especially since at that time I was just grinding at work and not doing much else. She had a way of making boring days feel special. About a year into dating, I started thinking seriously about our future. We talked about moving in together, marriage, kids, the whole nine. It felt like we were on the same page, so eventually I proposed, and she said yes. I thought I had found my forever. But here's where things started to shift. Alicia had some friends, girls she used to work with at the warehouse and others she picked up along the way that I never really liked. I'm not the controlling type, and I don't believe in telling a woman who she can or can't be friends with, but I also believe in calling things how I see them. These girls were trouble, period. One of them, let's call her Shauna, was notorious at the warehouse for being a serial cheater. Everybody knew it. She had a boyfriend at home, but at work, she always had a work boyfriend, sometimes more than one. It was a running joke at Amazon, and it always rubbed me the wrong way. Another friend, Kira, was a straight-up party girl. She lived for the weekend, always clubbing, always drunk, always posting wild stuff on social media. And then there was Tina, who wasn't as bad, but she was a follower. She did whatever the other girls did, no questions asked. I never vibed with them, and I told Alicia that from the jump. I'd sit back and watch them influence her, and I'd think to myself, these are not the type of women you want in your fiancé's ear. But Alicia would always brush it off, saying, they're just my friends, Malik. They don't control me. And for a while, I let it go, even though in my gut, I knew nothing good would come from them. Fast forward to the wedding planning stage. Things were stressful, as weddings always are, but we were making progress. Then came the idea of the bachelorette party. I didn't even want her to have one, to be honest. Not because I didn't trust her at all, at least not at that point, but because I knew who was going to be involved. Those same friends. I knew the kind of energy they brought. I knew what kind of situations they liked to put themselves in. And I just didn't want our relationship to be tainted by some stupid night of drinking and bad decisions. But when the topic came up, Alicia insisted. She said it was tradition, that it was just harmless fun, and that I was overthinking it. Against my better judgment, I didn't push too hard. I didn't want to be the guy who seemed controlling or insecure, so I bit my tongue and said, okay, do your thing. But inside, I felt weird about it. I can't even explain it. Just this heavy feeling in my chest that something was going to go wrong. The night of the party came. They rented out an Airbnb, not too far from our city. I stayed home, trying to distract myself with video games, but I couldn't shake the anxiety. I kept picturing her with those friends, doing God knows what, and it ate at me. I didn't want to be the jealous type, so I didn't text her much, but I stayed up late just restless. Around midnight, I got a call from one of my boys who also worked at the warehouse. He told me, "Yo, Malik, I don't know if you know what's going on, but that party's wild. They got strippers over there, and it's looking crazy." My stomach dropped. I hadn't known there would be male dancers involved, and if I had, I would have put my foot down. I knew her friends were reckless, but this was another level. I tried to calm myself down, telling myself Alicia wouldn't cross any lines, but the uneasiness grew worse. Something in me told me I needed to see for myself, so I got in my car and drove to the Airbnb. Looking back, I don't know if it was instinct, paranoia, or God guiding me, but I felt like I had to. When I pulled up, there were cars parked all over. Music was blasting from inside. I walked up to the front door, and here's the crazy part. It wasn't even locked. I just turned the knob and walked right in. True story, what I saw when I stepped into that house, I'll save for part 2. But let me just say this. Every bad feeling I had leading up to that night was spot on. My worst fears were confirmed the moment I walked in. In part 2, I'll tell you exactly what I walked in on, how Alicia reacted, the way she tried to gaslight me, and how she begged me not to leave her after what I saw. But for now, I'll end this email here. Thanks for reading my story. I know it's long, but I wanted to give you and your audience the full picture of how we got to that night. Sometimes the red flags are waving in your face, and you ignore them because you love someone. I ignored mine, and it cost me big time. Until next time, Malik. Ex-fiancée cheated at her bachelorette party, part 2. Hey, true stories, it's Malik again. Like I promised, here's part 2 of my story. In part 1, I left off at the point where I walked into the Airbnb where my fiancée, Alicia, was having her bachelorette party. I told you all how uneasy I felt leading up to that night, how her friends were nothing but red flags, and how my gut told me to go check things out. Well, here's exactly what went down when I opened that door, and how everything unfolded afterward. This one is going to be raw, but I think it's important to share it all. When I walked in, the music was blasting so loud that no one even noticed me at first. I remember the smell of alcohol hitting me immediately. Tequila, vodka, maybe some weed too. I stepped inside and looked around. There were a few girls sitting in the living room, laughing and screaming, clearly drunk out of their minds. But Alicia wasn't there. I asked one of her friends where she was, and they just giggled and pointed toward the back bedroom. My heart started pounding. I walked down the hall, and the door to the room was cracked open just enough for me to see inside. True story, my fiancée, the woman I was supposed to marry in just a couple of weeks, was in bed with one of the male dancers they had hired. Not just flirting, not just being silly. They were having sex, full on. No denying it. I froze. I couldn't even process it at first. I just stood there, looking, my mind blank, my stomach sinking deeper and deeper. Then it hit me, all at once, like a punch in the chest. This was the woman I had spent years with, the one I had planned to build a family with, and here she was betraying me in the worst way possible. I pushed the door open, and that's when she noticed me. The look on her face was something I'll never forget. Shock, fear, and then this fake expression like she was going to try to spin it. She jumped up, covering herself with the sheets, and started yelling, "Malik, It's not what it looks like. Can you believe that? I literally caught her in the act, and the first thing out of her mouth was gaslighting me. The dancer just got up, grabbed his clothes, and dipped out like nothing happened. He didn't even look at me. He knew what it was. I stood there, not saying a word at first. I was so angry, so hurt, but also just numb. Alicia kept babbling, trying to explain herself, saying she was drunk, that her friends pressured her, that it was a stupid mistake. I didn't want to hear it. I told her straight up, "We're done. The wedding is off." That's when the begging started. She jumped off the bed, grabbing at me, crying, saying she didn't mean it, that she loved me, that I was overreacting. She tried to spin it like it was just a drunken mistake and didn't mean anything. I told her, "Mistake or not, you showed me exactly who you are. If this is what you do days before we're supposed to get married, then I can only imagine what marriage would have looked like." Her friends started coming into the hallway, hearing the commotion. And you know what's crazy? Instead of holding her accountable, some of them tried to defend her. One of them actually had the nerve to say, "It's her last night being single, Malik. You should let it go." That's when I knew for sure these women were poison. I turned around and walked out of that house without looking back. The ride home was the longest drive of my life. I was shaking with anger, my mind racing a million miles per hour. Part of me wanted to cry. Part of me wanted to scream. Part of me just wanted to disappear. I kept replaying everything in my head. How I met her. How I ignored all the red flags. How I trusted her despite my gut telling me not to. And now here I was, a week away from what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, completely destroyed. The next day, she blew up my phone. Calls, texts, voicemails, non-stop. She showed up at my apartment crying, begging me to hear her out. Against my better judgment, I let her in, just to get closure. She sat on my couch, tears streaming down her face, telling me she was sorry, that she didn't know what came over her, that it was the alcohol, that it was the influence of her friends. She swore up and down that she loved me and that what we had was too good to throw away. But here's the thing. Once you see someone for who they really are, you can't unsee it. I looked at her, and all I could picture was her with that dancer. I didn't see the woman I fell in love with anymore. I saw a liar, a cheater, someone who didn't value me or our relationship. I told her I couldn't do it. I told her to leave. She broke down even more, saying she'd cut off all her friends. She'd do anything to make it right. She'd even go to counseling if that's what it took. But in my mind, it was too late. Over the next couple of weeks, she kept trying. She had her family call me, trying to convince me to reconsider. Her mom even reached out, saying Alicia made a mistake and that I should forgive her. But I wasn't budging. To me, it wasn't just a mistake. It was a choice. She chose to disrespect me, our engagement, and everything we had built together, and I couldn't overlook that. One of the hardest parts was dealing with the embarrassment. Everyone knew we were supposed to be getting married, and suddenly the wedding was off. People asked questions, and I had to either dodge them or tell the truth. I chose to tell the truth because I wasn't going to let her spin some story that painted me as the bad guy. I told my family and close friends exactly what happened. And you know what? They supported me. They told me I dodged a bullet, and deep down, I knew they were right. The months that followed were tough. I went through all the emotions: anger, sadness, regret, relief. It was a roller coaster. But little by little, I started to heal. I threw myself into work, into the gym, into hobbies I had neglected while being so wrapped up in the relationship. I started rediscovering myself, the Malik I had lost while trying to build a future with someone who wasn't worthy of it. And here's something I realized through all of this. Your gut never lies. From the very beginning, I felt uneasy about her friends. I felt weird about the party. I felt like something was going to go wrong. And I ignored all of it because I didn't want to seem insecure or controlling. But my gut was screaming at me for a reason. If there's any advice I can give to other men listening, It's this: trust your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. As for Alicia, the last I heard, she's still hanging with those same friends, still partying, still living the same lifestyle. Meanwhile, I've been focusing on me. I'm not in a new relationship yet, and honestly, I'm okay with that. I'd rather take my time, heal properly, and make sure the next woman I commit to is someone who truly values loyalty and respect. So that's my story, true story. From meeting Alicia at Amazon, to falling in love, to ignoring the red flags, to catching her in the worst way possible, and finally walking away. It was painful, but it was also a lesson I'll never forget. I'm sharing it because I know there are men out there who might be in similar situations, and I want them to know: don't ignore the signs. Don't let someone gaslight you into doubting what you know in your heart to be true. Value yourself enough to walk away when someone shows you who they really are. Thank you for giving me the space to tell this. Writing it out has been healing for me, and I hope it helps someone else too.